Hey everyone, I'm Stacy with Loving My Veteran, and today we have the honor of talking to Richard McCauley, who is a veteran. He's going to introduce himself, tell you all this stuff, but he's going to talk about the TBI side. Richard has the TBI and what he's been through and his path and his journey. So Richard, introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I am Richard McCauley, and I was I'm the artist formerly known as Staff Sergeant Richard McCauley, right? One each in the United States Army. And my last assignment I had in the Army, I was in the Army as a combat engineer for 12 years. And then my last assignment I had, I was a drill instructor at Fort Leonard Wood, Bravo Company, 31st Engineer Battalion, 1st Engineer Brigade, bringing in brand new baby sappers into our world. And I was there from 2012 to 2014. I think I'm 42. I'm pretty sure that's how old I am. Either way, that's just a number, right, associated to you, I feel like, anyway. But I'm married, been married 13 years. I'd like to say happily, but that's not going to be the truth when you got TBIs and post-traumatic stress going on. Not everything's going to be happy, but yeah, we're still married and functionally married. I would put it that way. So it works.
I get you. I think we think it's happy married. People.
What's that?
But people are not always TBI world, PTSD world. We tend to think that we have to quantitative, but the real world, Richard, the non-PTSD TBI world, people aren't happily married all the time either.
Right. Of course not. Of course not.
I think that we just define ourselves. We kind of give ourselves the stigma.
Right. The divorce courts are full for a reason. Yeah, surely. But so I have 3 daughters that I have wonderful relationships with. They're 23, 21, and the youngest one's 10. I didn't raise the 2 older ones. They were with their mother while I was in the military, but I did, I was with them every time I could, and we maintained a relationship, which wasn't always easy, but we made it work. I did 3 deployments, 2 of them that you'd consider combat deployments to Iraq. I did all of 2005 from basically January to January, because back then we were taking our own equipment still. And so I went on the advance party and then the trail team coming back. And then we finally wised up, quit wasting millions on logistics, and just started falling in on equipment that was already there. But I was back. So I left. I was in a unit in Germany, 94th Engineer Battalion Combat Heavy in Germany. And that's who I deployed with the first time to Iraq, in Mosul, when Zarqawi had just left Fallujah and went up there. So that was mainly security patrols. But I did over 17,000 miles then on that deployment. And then a PCS to Fort Riley, Kansas. They did offer me the chance to stay back for so I was 12 months down. But, it's like, and then you come fall in. No, I mean, if the guys are going, you're going. So 6 months later, 7 months later, one of those months was spent, all of July was spent in the box at NTC training. So I don't really count that as a month off. But anyway, 6 months later, 7 months in reality, I was back in Iraq, or back in Kuwait, ready to go back into Iraq. And so that turned out to be 15 months. I was the 1st Engineer Battalion, 1st Brigade, 1st Infantry Division out of Fort Riley, Kansas for that deployment. And actually the whole brigade went home in 2007, in September. They went home, and we stayed, our battalion alone stayed for 3 more months to make 15, because we were route clearance. So they left us behind, which was awesome. So not really, but anyway, so throughout I did 23,000 miles thereabouts, or just a little over on that deployment, on patrol. And so, you know, when you're out that much, I'm probably one of the only people I know with that many miles that when, you know, when you're out that much, things are going to happen. So bombs are going to go off, you know, people are going to shoot at you. People aren't happy that you're out there doing that kind of job or you know, contributing to that effort. Yeah, that doesn't make them too happy. So anyway, so all basically there during the entire surge from September 06 through December 07. So there during the entire surge. And then my last deployment was to Kuwait from October 10 to October 11, 2010 to 2011. We were supposed to go into Iraq, but Obama had stopped. He had stopped any more troops, I think, from going in or whatever it was. It was in that time period. And we got stuck in Kuwait. So, you know, the coolest thing we did there was help EOD do some kiloton charges and stuff like that. To do those big charges EOD were doing, you literally had to clear the airspace for 3 kilometers above you. Wow. Before they did the blast. Yeah, you can knock a plane, a small plane or a helicopter right out of the sky. Yeah, so that was an experience. And our standoff was 3K as well, you know, to blow it. So that I had never been even remotely that far away from a blast, you know, any of them we had set off. So that was an experience. But you know, fortunately, I mean, I lost friends in combat, but I didn't ever lose any soldiers, just because I wasn't a leader in combat. My squad leader time deployed was in Kuwait. So that's pretty much
your military career.
Yeah, that's pretty much me. The TBI side, you know, kind of, you know, we knew about it before I got out, but after I got out is when really things started to show up. And they had told me I had a TBI. Like I went to a TBI clinic in Bamberg, Germany, back in it was before the deployment. So it was like maybe 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. And they told me that I had a what they called an MTBI. They were calling mild until they figured out there is no such thing. And then they just, you know, that terminology has been dropped since then. But they wanted to call it MTBI, which is what they were diagnosing certain people with back then. But then they never told me anything. What does that mean? You know, nothing. And we didn't find out till we raised our own money and went to California to the Amen clinics and had spectrum scans done over a 3-day appointment and all this different stuff. And then Dr. Amen's not a neurologist himself. I think he is a psych doc, actually, but he has plenty of, you know, highly regarded neurologists working for him. And I went to his actual office. He's got like 7 of them in California, but the one he offices at is where I ended up at. And excuse me. And I remember Dr. Faber came out, the neurologist, and said that I had early onset dementia, you know, at 38 years old, which I knew something was wrong because I was having seizures and incontinence in the night. And I thought I had something wrong with like my internal, you know, something's wrong with my prostate. Something's wrong. Maybe I got cancer, you know, something's wrong like that. I didn't know I was having seizures. Like I had to find that out. Like we had to find that out another way. I didn't know that it was seizures, you know, till later on down the road. But anyway, I've been through a bunch of neurologists, a bunch of testing, you know, tons of it now. And hyperbaric oxygen was a big part of my journey back, you know, from the state I was in. Just to give you an example of where I was, the lockdown acute mental health place is called 8 North. That's just the wing it's on in the Oklahoma City Hospital here. Well, I made like 8 separate trips to 8 North in about an 18-month time period.
Wow.
All of those in handcuffs. All of them. I mean, in their estimation, I was like something like a monster, like, but like maybe a monster with a heart, because I didn't want to hurt anyone innocent, I would rather go get help, really. But I mean, unfortunately, some people got hurt in the process, that looking back, with a rational mind, or somewhat rational mind, it's all relative, right? But looking back with a rational mind, I can't figure it out. Like, it don't make no sense. But at that time, I didn't know yet what was wrong with me. I just telling them that the medication they give me isn't working. It's either knocking me completely out, like on Seroquel, for example, or I wouldn't take it and I'd be manic. And I'll give you the worst example of that, and then I'll open it up to questions. This is about all I got to say. But the best example of that is my wife left. And I give you these examples only because I hope it helps, obviously somebody out there. They can hear this. But my wife left on a business trip. It had been planned for like a month or more. It wasn't spur of the moment. But I wasn't in a really good way when she left. But she left and went to New Jersey. And by the time she had landed, I packed up most all my stuff and took our car that was paid off, by the way, at the time, and took our car and took off because I was convinced that she was leaving me somehow. So, in just a matter of a few hours, my manic mind had cooked up a conspiracy, and I was totally believed it, to the point I sent her messages, whatever, telling her later. And somehow, I don't know how I ended up at the VA hospital, but I ended up there somehow, and I got in there. Like, I was in there for 2 or 3 days. But at the time I was on methadone, because I also left the Army with a very active addiction to opioids, because their plan was just back then was just medicate you, send you back to work, especially as a drill instructor. That was their only plan, because you didn't have time for anything else. You didn't have time for physical therapy or anything else. So anyway, I've now transitioned to Suboxone and doing much better. But that in itself is a whole nother story. Could be a whole nother episode, to be honest with you.
We may talk about it.
Yeah, that's a whole other story. Just that journey in itself, and being willing to go down that path. But either way, I came out with a really active addiction. So I was on methadone at the time, and they because when I showed up there, I was very cantankerous, and I remember that, and I wanted to fight. And the dude that was there, I've known him. Like I said, I've been there several times. I knew everybody that worked up there. His name was Charles. Really nice guy, and big old black guy. And I told him, Charles, if you don't back up, it's on like Donkey Kong, And he couldn't figure out where it's coming, because I'd never had been like that. So they ended up giving me Ativan, which was fine, as long as I'm under supervision. And in the hospital, you can give Ativan with methadone under certain circumstances, so long as you're monitoring vitals and all that. But the problem is that I still had to take my methadone the morning they released me, and they gave me Ativan. And so here I am on, at the time, I think like 100 milligrams at least of methadone, and I'm on whatever they gave me of Ativan, and they discharged me like that. So I took off in the vehicle, but before I took off, I hit a post so hard going forward. Now this post is directly in front of me, right? I had a standard vehicle. The vehicle was a standard, so I could rev the engine up. And the guy, one of the witnesses later, I found this out later, like I said, I was revving the engine, like thought I was going to blow the motor. Like I was just revving. I don't know whether I couldn't hear. I don't know what it was, but I was revving the engine, and then I just popped the clutch when it was in gear with the e-brake off of it. And I hit the concrete pillar that was in front of me so hard that my vehicle jerked to the side so hard, it popped the vehicle next to me, it popped the door hinge.
Wow.
One of the strongest parts of the car. It popped it open, like totally ruined their door. And the door hinge and everything had to be replaced. Like, and then slammed the other car hard enough to like shatter one of their windows. So there's two cars next to me. They hit the concrete pillar in front, banged off into this car, popped their door hinge, banged off them, and then broke their window. And I guess they called me outside. Now, after all this, these people let me leave. Now, this tells you, people, if you see a vet in trouble, okay, you don't have to call the cops, but don't let them leave, for God's sakes. But anyway, they let me leave. But they got me outside the vehicle. The reason I didn't just take off is because I knew I'd hit people. You know, I was conscious enough to know that. Well, they caught me outside the car. I was trying to leave my VA ID because I couldn't think to write or anything. The only thing I could think is just leave my ID, and then they'll know it's me. But then they walk up and they're like, no, don't leave your ID, you know, like, and where's the VA cops when you need them? Like, these people have harassed vets to no end every time I've been in the VA. You know, not every time. That's an overstatement. But a lot of times I've been in the VA, I've seen these people harass vets, literally harass vets, you know, that are just having a hard time. And not that some vets out there, I get it. You know, we're not all of the same caliber, but still, I've seen them harass vets. And where are they when I need them? You know what I'm saying? Like, to keep me from leaving and messing up. Well, anyway, I did leave. The long story short, we never got the car back again because I flattened both tires, left it in a part of the Capitol where the highway patrol didn't even leave it for like 30 minutes. They towed it like right away when they saw, you know, nobody's around. I had AAA, couldn't think to call them. I could have just called them. They'd have sent a record right away, put it up on a truck, and hauled me to the nearest wherever. I was like a platinum member of AAA, you know, which, by the way, cost you like a whopping $12.99, I think. But anyway, they would have, you know, but instead I walked to a gas station and called my wife and tried to explain this crazy situation. But anyway, so yeah, that's how out there I was at one time.
I think, knowing Erin, she probably was not real happy when you called her, Richard.
I don't remember her being real happy, but I don't remember me being real happy either. So we were unhappy together.
I think the thing that I want to know, and I think you and I touched on this early yesterday when we talked about this. First of all, again, I have to thank you because I know this is hard for you. To have these conversations are hard. What was the thing for you to get help the very first time?
I was going through a lot of survivor's guilt, I guess you'd call it, maybe. Just, you know, how in the world me with all of my 10 digits, you know what I'm saying? After everything I've been through, yeah, I've had TBI, nerve damage, different stuff, degenerative disc disease. I have, you know, from different stuff, but, you know, these guys didn't make it home. So, you know, I don't need to go get any help, you know, but finally, you know, a couple vets that, you know, gave a crap at least enough to call me on my stuff, say, you know, what if those guys were here? You know, what did they tell you to do? What would their advice be? Or if they were here to live this life and you were gone, what would your advice for them be? You know, would you want them to throw away their family, throw away their future, whatever they have here, you know, for this madness, or like, you know, get some help? So, you know, that was probably a big part of it. In a time where, you know, you've got to, if you really want help, you can get help, but, you know, understand in the hundreds. No, actually, I figured out with my wife, I can safely say thousands of hours of counseling now that I've been through. It's just a willingness. It's that same willingness. It's that same drive that got you through combat. If you can tap back into that for the right reasons, then you can make it. It ain't going to be easy.
So it almost like
it ain't going to be easy, but it's like I used to write on the board. I used to write something in our war room for our privates every cycle. The pain of change is far less than the pain of regret.
Wow. I like that.
I wish I could take credit for it. I can't. I heard it somewhere and latched onto it, but and that's driven me on. You know, I don't want to live with regrets, even though I do. We all do. Okay. But I don't want to live with that as being the focal point. No.
So I know that from veterans and from talking to veterans, because I feel like the only way this whole thing works is good support from family, medical support, whatever. You have to have the support structures. But the only way you get the support structure is if we take a few minutes and understand the other person's perspective. So in talking to veterans, and I'm not one, so I can't speak for a veteran, is that y'all are very mission driven. Even when you get out, you're very mission driven. So it's almost like you have to make getting help your mission.
Well, yeah, I think it becomes an implied task when you say that my sobriety and my sanity are worth more than anything else. And without those, it's like trying to do an operation without 360-degree security.
Right.
Good luck. Good
Right.
luck. You could have 270 degrees, but eventually that enemy's going to find your pie. I don't care how little your pie is. It'll be 10%. The enemy's going to find the soft spot eventually. So you got to be tight all the way around. Right. And, you know, so you can't live without your sobriety and without your sanity. And if there's anything that's destroying veterans quicker than anything else in this world, it's alcohol. It's not drugs. It's alcohol, because alcohol is the gateway to all of it.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't have seizures anymore. This is free. I don't have seizures anymore. And while they had me on Depakote that was ruining my liver, destroying my liver, okay, that my seizures still weren't at a cease. My tremors were as bad as they'd ever been. And I've been on medical marijuana now. I live in Oklahoma, so it's legal here for medical purposes. And I've been on medical marijuana for like 3 years now, and I haven't, no, maybe a little less, but I haven't had a seizure since I've been on it. And my liver functions like my doctor said. The liver is as healthy as like a 20-year-old person. My back and joints and stuff aren't necessarily, but my liver and stuff is good. But I also, by the grace of God, I'll say, was able to quit drinking 5 years ago as well. And you know, once I figured out you didn't need it to have a good time, and that was the end of that for me. And you don't.
Well, I know for us, Carl called himself a functioning alcoholic, and I think we all tend to put our labels, because he was very opposed to
probably one of the few. He's probably one of the few that are willing to admit that fact, but that's true for a lot of people.
He did. The pills, you know, that they're given, that your guys are given, and the side effects are horrific. And we talk a lot about education on the side effects. And I've read Boone Cutler's book, FPL, Functional Personal Lifestyle, who was talking about the whole medical marijuana scene and being able to use marijuana, that it's not what it was when I was a kid, where they did, this is your brain and your brain on drugs, the advantage of it. And I know that when he was drinking, he didn't see it, but his whole mood changed it, and he would become way more angry and way more whatever. And now he's not. And unfortunately, marijuana is not legal in Georgia, but he's gone to CBD with Delta 8, which gives you the THC properties.
Right.
Totally different person.
Right.
I mean, functions, sleeps at night,
Right.
totally different person by utilizing that versus the alcohol.
Right.
I think it's part of the deadening pain. Okay, so let me ask, I know this is a tough question, and I think we need to tell other people. I know your wife personally. I mean, I've known her for a year or so, probably a year and a half. So I know Erin personally. And I love you and her both.
Yeah.
How much has your TBI played a role in your relationship with Erin, good and bad?
I'd say, other than the character building process it takes to deal with something like this, it's all been bad. Yeah. There's not a lot of good for her end, as far as the TBI and the symptoms of, that's a scary world. I got over my mortality a long time ago. So, I don't care personally. I have a strong faith because it works. I don't have a strong faith because someone told me about it or I got it on the news somewhere. No, it made a real tangible difference in my life. It has, it continues to, and I know that it will till the day I die. And over the last 6 or 7 years that I've had this relationship with Christ, oh, by the way, I've never regretted not one single time I spent in his word, time I've spent in his house, time I've spent evangelizing, any of that. I got a lot of regrets. I have not regretted one bit of it, and I haven't wasted one bit of it.
Yeah.
The church, hey, everybody says the church is full of hypocrites. So's the bar.
That's right.
We just have some trying to get well.
Yeah,
that's all.
I agree. And
we have a lot of them trying to get well. And oh, by the way, the next time someone claims to be a Christian, the next time someone claims to be a Christian and they're wanting to witness to you, I ask them this simple thing: how much do you give? Well, it's not too personal of a question, my friend. If they're wanting to share their faith, they ought to be able to tell you how much they give. Because I'm going to tell you right now, we go to a big church. It wasn't always big church, but our pastor was brave enough to get up there and say that, 40% of the people who attend here regularly give nothing. I'm not talking about don't give 10% or what's called the tithe. I'm saying they give nothing. And I'm going to tell you right now, they haven't found it.
mm-hmm.
They haven't. Because when you found it, that means the Bible says the kingdom of heaven, Jesus described it as this, as someone who, he described it a lot of different ways, but he described it one time as this person who's lost a rare coin, right? And when you lost something like that, you search the whole house. Everything stops. Life stops until you found it. And when you found it, you call a celebration and let everyone know you found what you were looking for, right? That's, you found it, right? Anything else is a counterfeit. It's a counterfeit. I'm telling you, it's a counterfeit. Because Jesus loves you just enough to save you right where you're at, right? In the middle of your mess. But he loves you way too much to leave you there. He won't leave you there.
Yeah. And I will say this to you too, and you know how I feel about this. I think that a lot of times we don't talk about how important faith is in our healing processes. My personal health journey, and some of the struggles I've been through. And at the time where I felt the lowest, and I'm not saying this because you're sitting here. I've already told Erin this.
Yeah.
The day that Erin and I were on the phone just a couple weeks ago, and you came to Erin and you said, I want to pray over you. Richard, I don't think people understand how important that is.
Yeah.
For you to be able to do that. And so again, it shows faith and support. We have to learn to support each other.
Yeah. And I'm nobody great. If God listens to me, he listens to anybody. Anybody. I'm telling you, before I found that, I can describe myself as simply this. And I apologize for the language, but it's just the facts. I was a murderous bastard. A murderous bastard. Yeah. I would rather kill you than look at you. I had no time for anyone or anything. The people close to me, my daughters, of course, I loved them. But as far as meeting anyone new, having anything to offer you, I had nothing, but piss and vinegar. So, and that's been replaced with art of joy. And now my first instinct is to pray, because that's just how I live my life. It's not because, am some magical person. No, not at all.
Did your faith play a huge role in dealing with some of the signs and symptoms of PTSD and TBI?
Even further than that, I'll tell you that the word for me, because reading and like seeing things, reading things is a huge deal for me. For some reason, numbers stick in my head, letters and words are all mixed up. I'll see normally the first letter and I make out of it whatever I want to. We laugh about it a lot, what I read, and then once I actually read it, what it actually says. But the word of God is alive. It's healing in itself. There's healing in the word itself. So that's what I've discovered, is that's helped to heal my brain. It's not just been about hyperbaric oxygen and some of the other treatments. You can read about 100 of them out there. But Jesus describes himself as the great physician, but he's also described as the word. Mm-hmm. So I think, it's a living thing, and it provides hope and health and healing and those sort of things. It's not in a magical sort of way. It's in a way of, in obedience to what whatever you've learned, trying to be obedient to that. And as an early church father that I read, St. Augustine said he lived somewhere around 100 to 200 years after Christ ascended. So not long. But he said the Christian life, if it's lived properly, it's a life of repentance. Constantly, right? Because we're imperfect people. So it's constantly changing your mind, right? Repentance is nothing more than changing your mind. Saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do this. And only this is my focus. So in other words, with just empty hands, not hands full of all your solutions, but hands empty of your solutions, knowing that you don't have one, and that he is the solution. And it's really as simple as that. And I think that's why Jesus said that he's used foolishness to confound the wise, right? It sounds like foolishness to people, but somewhere in there, there's a ring of truth. Yeah. Even if you're blinded by this world and the devil, that there's a ring of truth in there. And by the way, whether you belong to Christ or not, the devil is your enemy, because you're made in his image. He wants you nothing more than destroyed, isolated, separated, isolated, and destroyed. That's his process. It will separate you from your friends and family, and drugs and alcohol do that better than anything else that he's got in his tool bag. And he'll separate you from your friends and your family, and then he'll isolate you and he'll destroy you.
And I think that too, the other thing that we forget is that a lot of people turn away from religion because they think that, oh, well, you're saying that that God is the ultimate healer and I don't have to get real help from the doctor or whatever. I know that in my personal journey,
No.
they had like sold me out and said, you know,
Yeah.
Stacey, you need to go on hospice. And I remember you and Aaron being there when I made that conversation to Aaron. And then I just said, I'm done. I want to go find something else. And they dropped Emery in my lap, and Emery's given me hope. And that
Yeah.
came from a lot of faith and a lot of prayer. And it doesn't mean you have to turn away, but I did the same thing. I became a very angry, bitter person. And I can remember losing not my faith in God, but somehow my direction with him,
Yeah.
because I let myself become self-isolated from the devil. And I think that support is massive for us in
Yeah.
any walk of life. But
All of it.
our veteran community, our spouses, you, all of us, when we learn to come together amongst our differences, it keeps that negative, hateful, destructive
Yeah.
path out, because God tells us that we should be with like-minded people reaching a goal in a journey.
Right.
And when we let ourselves self-isolate, we fill our head full of negativity. You know,
Yeah.
there's some I won't say that, and I can say this because I did try to commit suicide. I've thought about it multiple times. I was so alone when
Mhm.
I felt that way. And when I feel alone, and I think even now through my journey going further forward, when I felt alone, it was easier for me mentally when all the negative crap came into my life to say, I want my life to end. I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
tired. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you're failing at anything. That should be like the warning sign that you're having isolation. Because I think even no matter where we are in this journey, even you and as far as you've gotten, and you know your spirituality and how close you are to God. I mean, I've seen it. There's still times that you wonder, why am I still here? And do I need to take my own life and I'm done?
Yes.
And when that
Absolutely.
happens, you become isolated from your support structure.
Yeah. Let me tell you what I've discovered. This is what I discovered, right? Because I have a real problem with innocence being hurt. I think a lot of us do. But I mean, I have a real serious issue with it, right? To the point that I want out of this world sometimes, because I want it out of this world and want out of this world sometimes because of that, right? Just because I know innocence is being exploited and abused and just things we can't even imagine all the time, right?
Mhm.
So I had to reconcile this before I could go forward with God. Or let me just clarify too that any higher power, right? Look, AA and NA have been using higher power for a long, long time and really, really successfully for a reason. Because you ain't getting out of your hole without a way to look up.
That's right.
Right? The first way, the first rule of getting out of the hole, first rule, put down the shovel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But we're not going to put down the shovel until there's a reason for us to put it down and look up. All right. So you got to have some higher power, whatever that is to you, fine and dandy. Okay. Right. You take that up with your maker and I'll take it up with mine. But whatever your higher power is, okay, that's going to keep you breathing another day that God gave you to breathe. And you're not going to try to usurp your higher power and take your will and emotions to yourself. Because guess what? You have to usurp and take your will and emotions back to you. And by the way, I'm not a member of A or NA. I'm not supporting them because I'm a member. I don't go to meetings, none of that. Okay. And I'm not against them. I'm just saying I don't. And I'm not even a member of Celebrate Recovery, which is a faith-based 12 steps. I'm not a member of any of them. Never have been. I've been to meetings, but I never have been a, flag carrying member. Okay. I just know that it works. Okay. It's worked for friends of mine. It works. But you got to have a higher power, right? To look to have hope in this world. But here's the beauty of this, right? Is that while I help you praying for you, then this is anytime the Spirit of God is involved, this is the beauty of it. It's a reciprocal relationship. Okay. So now I got out of the way. I'm not trying to push my faith on you, right? You can be miserable the rest of your life, die, and go to a hell that was never made for you. If that's your choice, you don't want to be around God, that's your choice. You can do all that. But don't take it out on your family and those that care about you. That's, I think, the point. All of us have those that care about us. Okay. Whether you know it or you don't know it, you've deceived yourself into thinking no. But every one of us has got somebody that cares about us. And so, there is purpose. There is hope. For goodness sakes, we're still in the United States of America. You can do anything you want to with your life. You can do anything you want to with your life. But yeah, you got to get over, get past whatever's in the past and realize that, look, you at some time in your career, even if it went sideways on you, at some time in your career, you served with honor, right? And with some type of pride, right? And if you did that, then you can still tap into that. It's still there, right? It hasn't disappeared or whatever. It didn't magically go away, right? You can still tap into that and make yourself good habits. But you're not going to replace, your whole lifestyle and think you're going to go cold turkey. And that's just the way it is. This was a very gradual process for me. This has been years in the making, what you're looking at right now.
And it still is a process for you.
It absolutely. If it ever stops, I'm dead.
Right.
I'm dead. And look, we have to be clear about what we're facing, right? Mm-hmm. When you're facing sobriety and sanity issues, when you're facing suicidal ideations and tendencies, you're in a life and death battle. Mm-hmm. Period. Every day. And to think you're not is you're being naive. You're being naive, especially if you're drinking alcohol and clouding your inhibitions. Matter of fact, I don't like to bring up these things. I really don't. And if you ever interview me again, it'd probably be the last time you ever hear it. But because I don't like to talk about it. But there was a young man that was in our unit. We got back from the 15 months of deployment that I told you about. And he made it through all that, and we made it back home. And about 2 months later, he took his own life with his personal firearm. And the doctor, when they took his blood alcohol level, he said that the autopsy guy said there's no way that he could have known what he was doing. Too much alcohol in the system. He was blackout drunk, what you would call blackout drunk. There's no way around it. He said, had he put the gun down and passed out, he would have not known the difference. He wouldn't have even remembered having it out the night before. But instead, he put it to his head and pulled the trigger. So, I say that to say, if you're drinking and taking illicit drugs, to think you're in control of that is it's paramount to stupid. I mean,
and it happens.
And not third grade stupid. I'm talking about dangerous stupid.
And it happens. And I think, Janine Lutz is another very good friend of mine. And Johnny, her son, took his life actually from pills that were given to him from the VA. Here, take these. This is going to make you feel better. Right. Because we don't teach you that it's okay to feel sad and it's okay. And you talked about your own addiction. And when you're giving people opioids on a regular basis, Boone's words, he called it zombie dope. Just take these, shut up, and go on, and we don't have to deal with you.
Not only that, it's a death sentence now because with all the fentanyl out there now and everything else. Hey, I don't care how bad methadone's put down. If that'll stop you from risking your life every time you score a few bags, like, so be it. Mm-hmm. So be it. If that's what it's got to take to get you from risking your life every time you score some dope, then so be it. Whatever it takes, you're worth it. I didn't say that. And what I was going to say earlier is but I had to reconcile, right? I didn't get back to how I reconciled it. How it was reconciled to me, and it had to come in my spirit first before I could really, put words to it. But Jesus's answer to all this in the world, we're free moral agents, right? See, he built us for relationship, okay, with him. But he had angels already, okay? He didn't need them, all right? They did have a choice in a sense, but a lot of them, really didn't. Not the way we do. Not the way we do, okay? Matter of fact, they're amazed, the Bible says, when they look into this grace. They do not understand it. It does not make sense to the God. They know a God of love, but to do this with they don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to them even. So what I'm saying is he made us free moral agents. To take that away would be to take away the opportunity for relationship. There's no opportunity when we're autonomous, or when we're robotic, right? We're not autonomous to ourselves. We can't make our own decisions, right? So, but in that, I can make a decision to hurt you, right? I can make a decision to hurt me. I can make a decision to hurt my children, right? And while we have laws against that and all that, right? That's secondary. The damage has already been done, right? Damage has already been done. And hurt people. So I've heard it said, right? So what was God's answer to all of this then? Well, at first he destroyed us all with a flood, right? If you believe the Bible, he destroyed everything. And the Bible says he repented. The only time it records it, that he was sorry that he had created mankind, but he couldn't destroy everybody. He had to save a remnant, right? Because he knew that there'd be no redemption in that. There's no redemption in that, right? There's no chance of redemption if that's the end of the story. But that's not the end of the story. So his real answer, and he's never been on plan B, oh, by the way, always on plan A. His answer was to send his son, the best he had. Send himself, really, if you understand it. That's getting into theology, and I'm not going to bore anybody with that. But the point is, he sent himself into this world, right? So that he could experience this life and what it was truly like to experience this pain and this agony and this suffering and this arduous life, right? That he somehow brings joy into. But he gave himself. That was his answer. It's not the answer maybe we would have come up with for sure. But the fact of the matter is, we're not him. And we weren't asked to be him. We were asked to be in a relationship with him. Mm-hmm. And he's made a way for that. And it's free to anyone for the asking, but it doesn't mean it's cheap.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's cheap. So that was his answer, right? And so in that, I knew that one day, this God that's big enough to do all that, one day, he is going to bring ultimate and perfect justice to each and every individual that has ever lived. Don't worry about Hitler. I've heard plenty of people say in evangelism, well, at least I'm not Hitler. Well, that's right, but you're not going to be compared to him. Understand, you're going to be compared to the perfect Christ, the one you didn't accept. You could have accepted his perfect life for your horrible mess, or you could not. It's your option. But Jesus is a gentleman. He won't ever beat down the door. He said, behold, I stand at the door and knock. He's not going to kick it in. So don't worry. If you don't want this, if you
it's not coming in your life,
he's not going to jump in. I can't jump through the screen and cause you to become a Christian. No, if you're going to do that, you'll do it on purpose, my friend. You'll do it on purpose. But it won't be, you'll find out in the end, it won't be you doing anything. It will be the fact you were called and you were drawn to him. And then He's going to actually be doing the doing, and you're going to be doing the accepting and the listening and those sort of things. And no, it doesn't make life all rosy. In a lot of ways, it makes life more difficult because you become a big target of the enemy then. But it's worth it. It's worth it.
I think the other
even on this side of what all the blessing is supposed to be, even the blessings on this side, and to live with a clearer conscience and peace of mind. I'm the richest man in the world.
You are. You got a pretty amazing family too. Your daughter is spectacular.
Oh,
Gracie is.
Yeah,
Gracie
I'm rich in a lot of ways.
Gracie is spectacular, and you know I love your wife even on days you don't like her very much. I love your wife anyway. But
well, I love her. She's sacrificed a lot to be where she's at. So she's where she's want to be. That's for sure, because she's had plenty of opportunities to not be.
and I think that you said something that makes me think so often about pushing away. I think there's times that those we love the most, whether it is Christ, whether it is our spouse, whether it is our family, when we get into a place, whether we want to admit it or not, we tend to push those that love us the most away. And you said that somebody loves us always. And we know that it's obviously Christ, and we know that God and Christ relationship. But on earth, he gives us people who love us here. And when we are in that hole with that shovel, throwing the damn dirt above our head where we can't see anything, we push away the people we love the most and who love us the most. And I tell spouses a lot of times, if they're being a real jerk to you and they're really pushing you away, it's a sign almost that they love you more than anybody. I know that sounds like really screwed up, but we push away.
It is screwed up, right?
But it's true. We push away the people we love the most.
There's a lot of truth in it. Why? For me, my why is that I push away is because it's hard to trust. It's hard to trust, right? The rule in combat arms is, right, we want to hope for the best. We want to plan for the best. We want to mitigate as much risk as we can. But at the end of the day, we've got to expect the worst because we live in a dangerous world to begin with, and we've got a dangerous job to do. So, you've got to expect the worst. Well, that's counterintuitive to what faith offers. Faith says, no, you don't need to expect the worst anymore, not from me. But understand, anyone short of God and short of heaven that loves you is going to disappoint you. And they're probably, I'm just going to let you in on a little secret, they're probably going to disappoint you more than anyone else in your life. And it's because you love them the most, you care about them the most, right? But you also know them the best, yet we rarely temper our expectations due to that knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's really true.
We still want it all, and we want it now, and you better freaking do it.
Yeah, we're not a very patient group of people.
You're gonna have heck to pay, right?
I learned early on in my relationship with Christ, don't ever ask for patience, because God's going to give you more than what you need, and you're going to wait way longer sometimes than what you need. But we live in a society of instant gratification, right? So you just expect it today and not to put in the work that it takes, and that's true on every aspect, whether that is your faith, that is sobriety, that is your relationship, that's dealing with your illnesses. We expect an instant answer today because we live in a world where, who would have thought, I mean, Richard, you and I you're not quite as old as I am, but who would have ever thought when we grew up that you'd be in Oklahoma and I'd be in Georgia and we'd be having a conversation in real time because this is instant.
Right.
We expect that. It's conditioned us and life isn't instant.
Right. Well, it still weirds me out a little bit to be talking to a screen and that someone is talking to a screen, right? But I'm like no tech. I tell people I'm not high tech or low tech, I'm no tech. So like redundant systems are my best friend. The ones you don't need you don't need technology to run. But yeah, I mean, there's no way to I mean, I was amazed when I was a kid at party lines, call waiting, blew us away. Call waiting blew us away, so yeah, who would have thought, information doubles now in a matter of hours. And they say in 10 years it'll be doubling in minutes or seconds. But the problem that with information doubling is wisdom isn't in any of that. It isn't in any of that. So that's the issue we face. We have more knowledge than any generation previous, but I would go out on a wild limb and say we might be suffering from the biggest lack of true wisdom that we've ever had in a society as well. So yeah, you just can't have it both ways, and that's just the way it is. But I'm glad that my hope is not tied to this world and what they have going on. and I can tell you that because of my relationship to Christ, I haven't missed out on anything that I wanted any part of.
I love that. Yeah. We're going to wrap this one up. We need to do this again, Richard, because I really enjoy conversations with you. I want to thank you because I know this is not in your comfort zone, typically.
You stopped there for a second. You're paused. Okay, there you go.
Back. I want to thank you because I know this is not necessarily in your comfort zone. But I think that veterans need to hear this. Families need to hear the openness.
Yeah.
And the more we share our stories.
I'm not here for myself. So
the more we share our stories, the more, and I tell somebody, ask me, why do you do Loving My Veteran? And my thing is, if I can change one person,
worth it.
I need to do.
Of course, it's worth it.
To do. And again, I cannot tell you enough how much I appreciate you and Aaron and you praying over me and some of the things that I've needed in my journey. You have been amazing.
Oh, see, I'm glad you brought that back up because what I was going to say is I didn't get to finish my point about the reciprocation no, you're fine. It wasn't your fault. It's because I rattle and forget where I'm at. but the reciprocation when the Spirit of God is involved, because it wasn't but a couple of days later and I'm feeling down and you were able to encourage me. So that's the reciprocation there's when there's the Spirit of God. Okay. And it doesn't mean because you meet a real Christian or a true Christian that they're not going to disappoint you either. Right. What I can guarantee you based on my experience that Jesus Christ will never disappoint you ever. People always will. Life will. It's going to. It's almost promised, right? Matter of fact, Jesus, at least himself, when he was here, did promise. He said, in this life, you will have trouble. It's a promise. But take heart, for I have overcome the world. So the victory's already won, and it's there sitting in a pretty little package. It's not going to feel like any victory's won, but slowly but surely, if you give him enough time in your life, he will win victory after victory after victory that you didn't have anything to do with. And you can sit back and rest in him, knowing that he's going to continue to do what he's already done. Yeah. Because the reason I could depend on that 50 caliber machine gun being 3 clicks out on the headspace and timing. Always. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, other vets will. but I could count on that thing. Every time I went 3 clicks out with that barrel, I knew that that 50 caliber machine gun I had was going to sing. And the only reason I knew that is because it had done it when all the chips were down, right? And so I knew I could count on it. But I knew eventually if I didn't maintain it, if I didn't care for it, if I didn't take care of it, right, it would fail me, and it would fail me at the worst possible time. And that's a lot like our relationship with God. It's going to fail us if we don't maintain it.
Mhm.
That's the only way, though. That's the only way.
Thank you.
It's not because he hung up on you or something.
She could have popped her head in and said hi. You know I love her, so.
Right. She's trying not to interrupt. I opened the spaghetti jar for her.
She's just amazing. So
Yeah, I know. She's awesome.
she is. Look, that's recorded now, Richard. She can play that little snippet back all the time where you said she was awesome. So on
There you
days you tell her she's not awesome, she can play that back.
I don't ever tell her she's not awesome. I just simply tell her my list of complaints, and she thereby gathers that she might not be as awesome. But guess
It's
what?
funny.
I'm not that awesome all the time either. So we'll call it fair enough.
Because when I started doing these, Carl will play back a video that I've said, and he said, "But didn't you say this?" And I'm like, "Oh crap!" You know, when it's recorded and out there, they get to play it back and they use it in your face, and you're like, "I'm over it."
Yeah, yeah,
We need to do more of these.
yeah.
I know that you guys are super busy with Gracie and whatever, and if you have time on a Thursday night, if you want to come talk to us on a Let's Talk, we'd love to have you, because I just think what you have to say is so important. And
Yeah.
sharing everything that the more we talk, I think the commonality we find in this world that we're not alone.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important.
I'll tell you what a preacher I heard said one time, and I really relate to this. I'm one beggar telling another beggar where I found bread.
Mhm.
And not just bread for a meal. I'm talking about I found bread for life, where I don't have to beg anymore.
Mhm. I love it.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna get back with you. We'll do some more of these because I think they're fabulous. I'll let you know before we put this out.
Yeah.
I'm Stacy. We're with Richard. This is Loving My Veteran. We're out to, we can impact one person. That's what we're here for.
Life's worth living, and
Absolutely.
it's worth living in your right mind.
Absolutely. All right, y'all have a blessed day. Bye.